15-year-old Daniel Mauser was killed at Columbine. And earlier today, I spoke with his father, Tom, and I asked him if he wished that he had the same kind of justice that the Michigan parents got today. Here is our interview. Tom, what did you make of today's verdict?
I was pleased. I think it's long overdue that we saw parents of a school shooter in a case like this, that was such an extreme case, have to pay a price for it.
Was there anything in particular that Jennifer Crumbley may have said while she was on the stand in her own defense that particularly made you feel this way?
You know, part of it was when I heard her comment that she had wished that the school had shown more concern about her son. I thought it was so ironic. You know, why didn't she and her husband show the same concern about their son? The signs to me were there. The signs of behavior. Clearly, it was a troubled kid. And then when she said that it was her husband's responsibility to secure the gun, I'm sorry, it's the responsibility of both parents to secure a gun. You don't provide a gun to a 15-year-old kid who was troubled.
Which, of course, leads to my next question, and that is about the next trial, because Ethan's father is going to face the same process. What do you expect, and what do you hope that the verdict might be in his case?
Oh, I hope the verdict is the same. You know, being parents, it's a partnership, and you are equally responsible for the raising of your child. And I think he should face the same consequences. It seems to me that their household was a train wreck.
Is there a gradation of holding? Sorry to interrupt. Is there a gradation of holding parents accountable in school shootings? Meaning, should every parent of a school shooter face these same charges and have to answer to them?
No, I don't think so. I think it does depend a bit on the circumstances, and really have to look at what was going on in that household and how much the parents knew. In the case of the school shooting where my son was killed, I don't think that they should have faced the same kind of consequences as in this case, by no means. But you do have to look at what is going on and not just simply say, well, it was the child's choice, it was their act, and parents aren't responsible. We have to have parents who show some responsibility.
And that we touched just, the surface of the Columbine tragedy and the loss of your son, Daniel. Were there thoughts at the time, back then, when you went through this, that you wanted to hold the Klebold parents and the Harris parents accountable for what their sons did?
Yeah, I certainly went through that process. I asked questions of myself. What was going on in those homes, and especially as more evidence came out, the videotapes and the fact that they did have their guns in their home for a while at one point, and that a gun shop had actually called the home of one of the boys asking about the delivery of ammunition, and he just said, well, this is the wrong number. It never occurred to him that maybe there was something going on. But I have to say, it didn't really quite come to the level of thinking that they were somehow directly responsible. I did certainly have feelings that they should have been better involved in their kids' lives because their sons did get in trouble with the law. And I think there should have been more.
Does it make a difference that their sons took their own lives? If those two boys had survived their own massacre, do you feel as though the parents perhaps should have paid some kind of a price in terms of responsibility for that disaster and that tragedy?
Yeah, I think in one way, maybe it shouldn't be different, but I think probably it is. I think we as humans do have a certain feeling for. When parents lose a child, in a case like that, they've paid a terrible price as it is. Yeah, that probably is true. And for me, part of the resolution was actually sitting down and meeting with the parents of the killers eventually.
which I learned that you did do. We're looking at a picture there of your son, Daniel. So sweet. I read somewhere that you still wear Daniel's shoes, especially when you do public appearances on this particular topic. Can I just ask if you're wearing those shoes for this interview?
Yes, I am. I feel that it kind of gives me strength. That really Daniel provided a lot of inspiration to me to speak out, because we were both very introverted, and even though he was so shy and introverted, he chose on his own to join the debate team at Columbine, where he had to get in front of people and speak, and that has really helped me in my quest for stronger gun laws, to get in front of people and speak, despite the difficulty of doing that. I just feel some empowerment from those shoes, and I only wear them at those times. So they will last. They will last a lifetime.
Such a sweet face. I'm glad that we're able to help honor him, and I'm glad you were able to share that anecdote about what he did for your life as well. Tom Mauser, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate this.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider, and don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.